One, we ask them to sign an NDA. We do a background check. As part of our recruiting process, we test for skills. We test for practice area knowledge. Everybody has to have at least 3 years of in-firm.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Meg Garavaglia. She's the president and founder at Woven Legal. Meg, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kelsey, for having me. I'm excited to be a guest on the podcast. And
Yeah, excited to have you. So Meg, why don't you start and tell me a little bit about yourself?
well, Kelsey, let's see. I am the last of a big family of 6 kids. So you and I have that in common. There are 5 girls, 1 boy, though. And so I grew up in Pennsylvania and got my degree in art from a university, a state school in Pennsylvania, Kutztown, and thought I would work in the advertising industry, for all my days in my career. But then, God had other plans. So here I am a few years after that. I think I graduated high school in 93. So I was a pharmaceutical sales rep for kind of a time in my life after our boys went to school. And then I did that for a number of years, but had to travel so much that I left that and started selling e-discovery and litigation support services to attorneys in Atlanta. And it was much more manageable, but a lot of demanding hours. And 3 acquisitions later, I left to then go and work virtually for a virtual assistant staffing company. And they were front runners in the industry. So it was really fun to do that and learn that industry. And I got a lot of attorneys on my roster and kind of was my entry into this industry. And I can share a little bit about how the company was started, but for fear of just talking a long time, I'll let you interject.
No. That's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about you and Woven Legal. So tell me a little bit more about, what happened next.
Yeah. So from there, I was working for the virtual assistant staffing company and really enjoyed it. I was one of 9 relationship managers. That was my role. So I got a lot of attorneys on my roster. And there again, when I started, it was one of 9. And when I left about 4.5 years later, I was one of 29 relationship managers. And when I first started, we all had about 50 clients on our roster. When I left, I think I had 97 clients on my roster. So, and we were all juggling that many, and it was just blowing up. So I had so many attorneys on my roster, and they would come to me and say, Meg, we love the virtual assistant that you guys placed. Now I need a paralegal. Now I need a legal assistant or client intake specialist. And the need was so great that eventually I went to the owners of the company on 2 different times, the husband of the partnership, and said, hey, can we consider doing a paralegal arm or at least a legal services arm? And he said, look, I love the fact that our clients want to grow their business with us. Excuse me, but that's just not part of our trajectory. We are growing as fast as we can. And, it's just, we enjoy having attorneys as part of the mix, but it's not a focus. It's not part of our plan. So after the second time of posing that question and just hearing the need that the attorneys that I served had, I decided to leave that company and try my hand at legal staffing, virtual legal staffing. And we got 2 clients right out of the gate, and that was really great. It was from my previous book of business when I worked in Atlanta, and then 2 years later, we find ourselves, we've grown considerably, and we're grateful for that growth. But yeah, our goal is just to provide just high caliber paralegals, client intake specialists, legal assistants to attorneys who are seeking fractional help, so part-time or full-time, but so that somebody that can serve proactively and even manage their manager. Our folks are just great at that and serving proactively and getting ahead of the leader. So yeah, that's what we do.
I think that's fantastic. And it sounds like you really saw a need within the market and were able to say, the role that I'm in right now, it's been great for you as you were growing and, as you were, raising your boys, like you said. But then, you said, hey, I see an opportunity. And it sounds like, your expertise in that area is really what helps to differentiate Woven Legal with your experience, knowing how to work with attorneys, how to talk to attorneys, and being able to place, good people in those positions.
It has been really fun. I actually think our team in the processes, for instance, we have paralegals who are serving in the relationship manager role that accompany, they guide our clients through our processes once the engagement has started, and the paralegal, for instance, and the attorney begin working together. The relationship manager is really involved, and so they have experience far beyond what I do. But I think one thing that separates us, there's two things, I think. First thing being that when people come to us, they're going to talk to people, and all of our clients have my number. They have Patty Cotter, my director of operations, who's amazing, an amazing polished professional. They have our phone numbers, our cell numbers, and if there's a problem, we're going to hustle to, work it out. And our goal is to really have clients who are delighted with our services, and we work really hard to make that happen. So yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of trust on both ends too, like building trust, with the paralegals and, with
It
the
is.
client intakes, but also too with the clients as well.
That is a really astute observation, because we oftentimes talk about the fact that we serve two clients, really, because our paralegals and many of the Google reviews that we have that we're so proud of are from paralegals we placed who and continue to place, who we've held the line for them.
Yeah.
We aren't afraid to say, and do the next right thing in service of business to protect our people. But we never forget that our clients are what put food on the table. So we are constantly working to balance that. We have to create an environment where our professionals can serve their clients, our clients, successfully. And so, yeah, we work hard to do that.
That's really interesting. And, going back to talking about your clients, you mentioned the support that you provided, being fractional. So talk to me, is there a certain size law firm or business that tends to work the most with Woven Legal?
Sure. And that is another great question. We mostly serve small to mid-sized firms. So I think our biggest firm is probably about 15 attorneys. And it's just a situation, particularly in the current business climate and the economic environment, that they don't want to, couple things, take on the cost of somebody in HR per se. Like, they might have an HR consultant, but the staffing component, it makes sense for them to outsource that. And then the other thing is the fractional component, and the fact that we handle all of the burden of searching for folks. We have a really defined process to get the right people in the seats. And as a result, those things seem to be why we enjoy an 87% retention rate with our clients, which is high in the industry, and we're really proud of that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And this may be a silly question now that I'm thinking about it, but just to clarify, are the positions that you're placing, are they virtual? Are they in person?
fully virtual. That's
Right,
all
that's what
we're
I
doing.
okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, we tried doing early on some in-person placements, and we just found that the caliber of professional that we were expecting, it was just hard because the net was smaller.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me a little bit about what the onboarding process looks like when you're bringing on a new client and when you're also bringing on a new, either a paralegal or a new client intake. Talk to me about what that process looks like on both ends.
Sure. So our client, when they sign our contract and pay an implementation fee, or actually we call it a fulfillment processing fee, it's a one-time fee because it pays for the cost of searching and identifying just the right VLP, virtual legal professional is the acronym we use, just the right VLP to serve them in the culture of their firm. And so that one-time fee, they'll never pay again as long as it's this engagement. We have one client who added, I think we placed their 12th VLP. Yeah, so all the growth, and they have grown exponentially since we've been with them, or they've been with us. But anyway, so that each new engagement, it pays that one-time fee. And then if they win the lotto, the contractor wins the lotto or decides to stay home with their family or take a job, at a big firm again, then we cover the cost to bring somebody else in who is even hopefully a better fit because we're armed with more information. And then, yeah, so that is how that happens. And then the client will be notified in 2 to 3 weeks. So let me back up. So we collect the implementation fee. The document has been signed. I then introduce, or sales introduces the new client to their relationship manager, and a client discovery call is scheduled. And that's where we dig in and really try to gain a deeper understanding. As I said, we have paralegals in that role, so they have an ability to ask questions really relevant to what the client may need.
Mhm.
So from there, the placement team gets busy and looks at our bench, our current bench. Do we have anybody on deck that can be a great fit? And if not, then we're never afraid to conduct a fresh search.
Mhm.
And at that point, 2 to 3 weeks later, the relationship manager will notify the client to say, hey, we found your ideal VLP to serve you. And from there, the kickoff call is scheduled and work begins. And then the relationship manager is checking in after the first week, let's say, or 2 weeks. They have a really regimented system, and they just are motivated to keep their thumb on the pulse of the engagement. And that includes with the contractor, because a lot of times we get an earlier sense, is it going well? Is it not going well? If a client's not delegating, if a client, and so we're the experts, right? So we know when trouble is brewing if some of the following things are happening. If the client is so busy, they're struggling to slow down to delegate, right? They came to us for a solution. We work really hard not to let them get stuck in behaviors that brought them to us, and we have, resources to support that. Another thing is if questions are sitting for more than 24 hours, if the paralegal, for example, reaches out with questions, it's important that the client remains engaged and is willing to invest their time and attention into that, building that relationship. Because as you said, the VLPs that we find in place, they are investing in the client's business and to really form that bond that, we called our company Woven Legal because what we knew to be true is that our clients benefited from helping the contractor feel like they're bigger than, and the goals that they have are bigger than tasks. They're part of their firm. They're part of the fabric of their firm. And that's why we, called it Woven Legal. The client benefits so much more when the VLP feels invested. They will go above and beyond and never stop. And then what, we know transpires is they can even get to the point, if the client is open to it, where the VLP is leading the leader, so to speak. Like, hey, don't forget you have a deposition at this time, and make sure that you take the such and such a file, and we're waiting for answers from all these people, but here's where everything stands. Just getting ahead of them and being very experienced. And you asked about onboarding for our contractors. That is a really involved kind of process that our recruiters utilize to identify, humble, hungry, and smart are the three legs of the stool that we want to see, from applicants before they're invited to go on and serve our clients. So, with that said, we get hundreds and hundreds of applicants every month, and our folks are really good at identifying, who, we definitely have people that arrive that we know pretty quickly they're not a fit. And so we're grateful that we're able to screen those folks out before that would ever, hit our client's radar. So anyway, then our operations side has a process to bring them on. We ask them to sign an NDA. We do a background check. As part of our recruiting process, we test for skills. We test for practice area knowledge. Everybody has to have at least 3 years of in-firm experience. And then they have to have significant practice area knowledge to be, to be considered for a family law engagement or an estate planning engagement. They have to have served attorneys who did that for at least 3 years. So then we do attention to detail testing. We want to know about responsiveness. Are they tech savvy? What kind of ability do they have to pivot and learn and take initiative to learn other softwares? Is that something that lights them up, And we have such a fantastic caliber of folks. And, so much so that I've had to speak with attorneys at times and say, look, you asked me for just a thoroughbred, racehorse, and you won't let them out of the stall. So you got to help me. You got to integrate them and spend some time and attention onboarding, helping us onboard them, giving them access to documents and things, because otherwise this will die on the vine, and it's, money that you've invested. And we all have the same goal. It's to make sure the client is more productive and delighted ultimately. So, and hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think you raised a few really interesting points in that. One, talking about being humble, hungry, and smart. I think I like those three kind of characteristics of what you're looking for. But I also think it's interesting, too, that you acknowledged that, you often have kind of tells for when it may not be going right. Because I think that's a huge part in making sure that, your VLPs are VLPs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, VLPs.
Virtual
are
happy,
and and also too, it goes happy in both directions. And I think you raised a few really good points like that. And just to pick your brain a little bit more, I'm curious, Meg, if there's a misconception that you tend to hear often about, from people in the field, or if there's misinformation, is there anything like that you hear often?
I love that question. And we have a podcast, so I'm writing that down there. So thank you. So there is a common misconception, and that is that we are recruiters. And I think we're getting more well known from coast to coast, but a lot of times clients come on and they're jaded from the word hello. And they're like, so what's this going to cost me? I mean, that's a fair question always, but I've been recruited. I have, certainly been involved with recruiting. And while I loved the recruiters that I worked with when I was a pharma rep and then in legal, honestly, I mean, the goal is to keep your professional in place for 3 months so you get paid. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Now, I know they are committed, and I know a lot of recruiters. I know they are committed to getting the best for their clients. It certainly benefits them by return business. However, the risk is really minimized with us because it is a subscription service. We do stay in place and we try to do the heavy lifting. If we see a situation where coaching is needed on either side,
Mm.
we do that. I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about with the client. Listen, we need you to respond to questions. And, essentially, this isn't going to work. If you came to us for a solution and you're doing what you did before, I can tell you right now how this is going to end up.
Mhm.
Because this is what we do every day. And we see a lot. I mean, we're all humans. And I know for myself that nobody loves some good procrastination more than this girl. So you spot it, you got it. I'm like, oh, he's doing what I do when I, am afraid of delegating or afraid of trusting. And so I think we've gotten pretty good at seeing, like you said, the things that are repeat situations and coaching through it. And we have a lot of processes to support that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Meg, this has been a great conversation. As we start to wrap up, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, either about the industry, about your VLPs, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
I think that if they are, if attorneys or if, they want to ask us questions about if they don't have the funds to maybe outsource staffing, they can always email us because we are committed to attorneys achieving a better work-life balance because the stakes are really high and we just care a lot about attorneys in the legal industry. So if we can help, please shoot it to meg@wovenlegal.com or info@wovenlegal.com.
Love it. Well, Meg, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you, talking about the difference between, being a recruiter and the work that you guys do now. I think that's an important differentiation to make, talking about all of the different things that you look for in your VLPs and really, how you found your way into being the founder of Woven Legal. I think this was a great conversation, and I appreciate you being on Business Ninjas today.
Thank you, Kelsey. It was a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, great to have you.